Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dryden. Welcome to my channel where we discuss things that no one else really wants to talk about, or maybe they do, but they don't want to talk about it in the truthful way. So we're going to be blunt, we're going to be bold, we're going to be biblical today when we talk about why young Christians are upset. So I took an Instagram poll on my Instagram story and I just asked, hey, young Christians, why are you upset? And I got a ton of different answers, but there was a lot of answers that doubled up and even tripled up. And those are going to be the ones that I'm going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let's just jump into abortion. This was the highest one that young Christians were upset about. On my Instagram story, they said abortion. I don't understand how a lot of people can think that God could continue to bless this country when we kill almost 1 million babies a year, and we've killed over 63 million babies since it was legalized in 1973 with Roe v. Wade. It's bad. Everyone knows it's bad. See, here's the thing, is a lot of people try to argue, oh, it's a clump of cells, oh, it's not a person. It doesn't take a genius to understand that even though a fetus might not be like you and me watching and making this video, we do understand that a fetus develops into a person. Therefore, that life still has inherent value. As we all know, we are made in the image of God. Who are we to kill that before they have an ability to fend for themselves or even do anything yet, be born? It's absolutely disgusting. I've pulled up some statistics just to help you guys understand how shocking this is. We hear 63 million and we hear almost 1 million a year, but I don't think we understand just how bad the numbers are. In New York City alone, black people have a higher chance to be aborted than being born. So Black Lives Matter unless they're a black fetus, because then you have a higher chance of being aborted than being born. I've heard it been said that in New York City, if you ever see a pregnant black woman on the subway, there's a huge chance that she is going to an abortion clinic right then and there. Not only this, but I looked up some statistics on adoption, and there's roughly 32 couples to 1 infant waiting for adoption. And yet, only 5% of unwanted pregnancies go to full term and then pass up their child for adoption. So 95% of babies that could have been adopted are not. And if you're wondering where I am getting my statistics from, all of my sources will be down in the description, which will link it to my website where you can see all of this in one easy spot. Right now, the most common abortion is with a pill. I don't know what it's called because it has too many numbers and letters in it, and I'm not that smart. But most people take this pill when the fetus is around 8 weeks old. The mother will then proceed to bleed for 9 to 16 days with heavy cramps and heavy blood flow. If the abortion fails, because it has a chance to fail, most mothers will then get a surgical abortion where the surgeon will vacuum out the remains of the fetus after snipping it up. All of this will have common side effects of pain, heavy bleeding, nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Death has occurred as well due to infections. So I've seen a woman, probably within the past 2 months, she took an abortion pill on live TV.
You're taking it. You're not pregnant, are you?
I would say that this is going to end a pregnancy. This would be my 3rd abortion.
Wow, that doesn't happen often. Rebecca, your reaction? I mean, the CDC said, FDA says it's safe.
A lot of people think, oh, you just take the pill and that's it. You just kind of pass it. No, it's extremely bloody. It's extremely violent. It's death in your body. That's what's taking place. And your body will pay the price. A lot of women, and this is a mix of being on the pill, and I'm talking about birth control, obviously, and then having an abortion pill. Most women, when they do eventually want to be able to have children, will not be able to have children or will have significant hardship in trying to get pregnant. So it's not a good thing. Birth control pill teaches your body to not be pregnant, and then it makes it harder for you to be pregnant later. The abortion pill kills your child within you, and then you have extreme pain, like I said, heavy bleeding, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting for 9 to 16 days. I think there's a small percentage that goes along as 30 days, and then it still has a decent chance of failure rate. It's terrible, and nobody really talks about that. They talk about it as if it's just an easy pill to take, and then you just let it pass. But no, Most people, most women don't want to talk about it because I'm sure it's full of, it's just a shameful topic. Now, obviously in Jesus Christ, you can be redeemed and forgiven of anything. There's always hope. There's always a sense of optimism that no matter what you've done, Jesus is righteous and will forgive you if you call out on his name. Young Christians are upset about abortion because true Christians, and I say true Christians because I mean it. There's a lot of people who are claiming to be Christians, but they're pro-choice. But true Christians understand the value of life. We're all made in the image of God. Just the other day, I was reading Matthew 19:13, which says, "The children were brought to him that he might lay his hands on them and pray. The disciples rebuked the people, but Jesus said, 'Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for such belongs the kingdom of heaven.' And he laid his hands on them and went away." Jesus Christ is the most pro-life advocate you could ever hear from. Unless you're a wicked sinner, but that's another story. And this is going to be my segue into the second topic of weak leadership. And I wrote that I think a lot of young Christians feel betrayed about the older generations and pastors that have not spoken out about the great sin of abortion and other sins such as homosexuality, stealing. An example is the riot and looting, and then the sin of murder and rape. I'll explain now. So the second topic, the second reason why young Christians are upset is because we feel betrayed by our leadership, not only government and political leadership, but also in our church leadership, starting with the government and the politicians that are supposed to be on our side, but don't seem to be. Romans 13:1-5 says this: "Let every person be subject to governing authorities." Sounds good. "For there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good." Quickly to explain, he's basically saying, look, authority is set up by God. Just follow the rules. You'll be okay. You don't have to worry about authority unless you're an evil wrongdoer. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. He doesn't use punishment. And it says the sword. That's pretty violent. He says the sword. He doesn't use the sword for no reason. He uses it for a reason. What's the reason? The reason is because you did something wrong. And then it says here, "For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer." Now, it's quite clear, biblically clear, that the government is put in place to protect the citizens from evil citizens. They are not a means of healthcare. They're not a means of providing food and aid. That is what the church should be doing, which we could talk about in another video. What the government should be doing is law and order. They should be punishing sin. They should be carrying out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Instead, we see the opposite right now in our newest administration. Kamala Harris funded bail for a murderer and a rioter. Biden called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist for defending himself against an aggressive and violent man. Biden also met with Jacob Blake's family. Jacob Blake is a domestic abuser and sexual assaultant. It's quite evident, especially in 2020, when we saw rioters and looters, commit arson and destroy over $2 billion worth of damages. Remember the pictures of Wendy's, that Target, all these things destroyed because they were outraged that a black guy died while on 3.5 times the deathly dose of fentanyl. It doesn't take a genius to understand that in 2020, there was a lot of rioting and looting for no reason, no good reason, other than the selfishness and the fleshly desires of man. And our politicians stood by with them. I mean, you look at Justin Trudeau up in Canada, he took a knee with Antifa and BLM. And it's just, it's stupid. They're looting, destroying our stuff, nice things. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. This administration loves doing what's evil, like abortion, like rioting, looting, destroying young people's bodies in the form of sex changes. We love hacking off breasts. We love messing with puberty blockers and just drugging children, and it's disgusting. So right now, our politicians love doing what's evil, but then they punish what's good. Like the Freedom Convoy up in Canada, that they were punished and they will continue to be punished. Anyone who went against COVID restrictions, like various pastors, got sued and they got taxed and they got ticketed. It's terrible. The people that should be standing up and speaking out for our sake, for the young Christians' sakes, are the church leaders, but they're not doing a great job other than a few of the big dogs like John MacArthur and Vodi Bakum and those type of guys. But for the most part, we have a bunch of pathetic pastors that don't speak out on the sins of abortion, homosexuality, transgenderism, and the government overreach into our freedom. I wrote here, and I think this is a good point to make. Before you get defensive about your own pastor, please recognize that I am talking about pastors such as Joel Osteen, Michael Todd, Stephen Furtick, and other megachurch leaders. These are the guys who have become friends to the world for the sake of the money in their pockets, and they should repent. James 4:4 says, "You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God." So, again, young Christians are upset with the lack of backbone when it comes to speaking out against this nation's sin. Paul was stoned. When was the last time your pastor was stoned? Okay, so I've discussed two reasons why young Christians are upset. Let's go on to the third reason. This one isn't as huge, but it was repeated a couple times. And this is people not taking care of their bodies. Right now, there's a very small, and you probably haven't heard about it, but a small freaky cult on TikTok and just general weird places online about all this fat acceptance. And they've waged this war on fat phobia. They say that fat phobia is rooted in racism. They're pulling any card they can to use. They're really pulling any trick that they can use to victimize themselves for their own overeating. Pretty dumb, and everyone can see right through it.
Here's your reminder that fat phobia is rooted in racism.
Hot people are working on unlearning fat phobia and being anti-racist.
So it's fat phobic to not want to be fat? Yeah, actively not wanting to be fat is fat phobic.
I am interested in creating a world that has no reason to fear fatness.
I, Dryden Joss, personally don't hate fat people, but I don't like fat people who expect me to say that they're beautiful and healthy. Doesn't make any sense. So, heart disease counts for nearly 700,000 deaths a year. I've spoken on this subject so many times. I even have a podcast episode on fat phobia and fat people just in general, so I'm not going to give too much detail today. But it's very sad to see people out of shape physically and then mentally because of the bad food that they make. So this creates this vicious cycle of being unhealthy mentally and being unhealthy physically, and then they die at the ripe old age of 40. It's not good. Everyone can see right through it that it's not a good thing. Now, how does this relate to young Christians? Like, why are specifically young Christians upset about fat people? I think that's pretty obvious. It's because God has gifted us with the body, and it's our duty and our responsibility to take care of it. Also, we just don't want to see other people in pain. All right, the next point, and this is the fourth and probably one of the biggest points other than abortion, is the easy and free access to pornography for young people. So I've got a lot of statistics here I'm going to be reading from. Again, if you want any of these sources, they're going to be in my website down below. There's going to be a link in the description. The average age of online porn exposure is 11 years old, and over 62% of children found porn in an unintentional way. And this is key, unintentional. Porn is too readily available and has no paywalls. Most social medias and websites and video games have some sort of softcore porn, which preps the mind for more hardcore porn. Many children have succumbed to an addiction without their consent that's compared to cocaine. And it's true, they really compare porn addiction and masturbation addiction to cocaine. And it's because you're releasing tons of dopamine and oxytocin every time you release or finish. Here's some screenshots that I took on my own social media. So this is Snapchat here. And this is just garbage on the Explore page. There's no age restriction. This is just here. And you can see it, what it looks like, and it's terrible. Why is this on my app where I should just be able to send funny photos to my friends? Also, here's some images from one of the most popular video games, which is called Fortnite. I'm sure you've heard of it. So this addiction has severely hit many young Christians, including myself. This is an incredibly shameful and guilty addiction, which has paralyzed many young Christians. The Bible does have a way out of this, which is that you can flee sexual temptation. You can also get out of any temptation because there is always a way out. God provides a way out. But also, 1 Corinthians 7:9, this is another way out, which says, "But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it's better to marry than to burn with passion." Unfortunately, the modern Western church has promoted college and careers over marriage, which is God's natural plan. To add insult to injury, many Christians tell younger men and women that they cannot get married until they get a grip on their porn habits. This is almost virtually impossible. Now, you're going to get upset when I say that, but it's true, and hear me out. In the 50s, people were getting married in their early 20s, but now men and women are waiting till their late 20s, basically 30s, to get married. Because of the stigma that you need to find a perfect spouse and that you need to be financially prepared for this. And then also because Disney's been pumping our brains with the past 50 plus years that we need to find the perfect person, the one for us, our soulmate. The Bible doesn't prescribe to either of these ideas. The Bible says leave your family and get married. It doesn't say anything about age or financial eligibility. Now, the reason I say that this is almost virtually impossible to get over is because I want people to understand just how bad it is. Here's some statistics. More than 40 million Americans are regular visitors to porn sites. The average visit lasts 6 minutes. There's about 42 million porn websites. The porn industry's annual revenue is more than the NFL, NBA, MLB combined. It's also more than the combined revenues of ABC, CBS, and NBC. 94% of children will have seen porn by the age of 14. Now here's a kicker. 68% of church-going men and more than 50% of pastors view porn on a regular basis. Well, maybe the women are better. They're not much better. 55% of married men and 25% of married women say they watch porn at least once a month. Only 7% of pastors say their church has a program to help people struggling with pornography. So we know that this is a huge issue, and yet the church is still not putting programs in place to get rid of this, to help people get over this. And that's why I say it's virtually impossible to get over, especially if you are alone with no accountability, no church group, and some people still don't have churches. Some people still have government lockdowns. Some people are still not able to go to church and be accountable to other Christians for their porn addiction. That's why I say it's virtually impossible to get over, because everything is stacked against you. Porn attacks the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that tells you no. When you're addicted to porn, it only gets easier to watch and harder to say no, because it directly attacks your impulse control. So why are young Christians upset? Because most of them were coaxed into a porn addiction without their consent, without fully knowing what the details to try to get out of a porn addiction would entail. That's why they're upset. And not only that, but nobody really talks about it. The church talks about it decently, but not as much as they should, considering the fact that most people have a porn addiction. And I believe it's over 90% of men have watched porn in the past 6 months. So everyone's done it, but no one wants to talk about it. Not only that, our culture pushes it through the way of OnlyFans, and they say it's empowering, and they say, oh, it's perfectly fine. You're horny. Just watch porn. It's totally okay scientifically, which is a lie. It's not good scientifically. And now children are watching porn. So think about that. There's no paywall. There's no proof that you're 18 to watch porn. So 11-year-olds are watching pornography. These are the 4 reasons young Christians are upset: abortion, weak leadership politically and in the church, fat people, and then porn. So if you agree with me, let me know, but please leave a comment. What are you upset about? What is it that your church leaders are not talking about? What's the issue, at least in the Western church? What's going on, guys? Let me know. Leave a comment. If you like this video, please subscribe, like that video, share this video with all of your friends and family and everyone else who wants to be as depressed as I am. If you like this sort of content and you like what I do here on this channel, please feel free to donate or become a patron today. Again, links down in the description if you want me to continue stuff like this. Prayer and financial gifting is always appreciated. So thank you so much. I will see you all in next week's video, which is going to be called something like how women's empathy is going to be their downfall, something like that. But I'll see you all later. Goodbye.